We'll get started. If you don't mind taking your seats. All right, we are back at 11:30, reconvening, and now we'll talk about some of the changes. Hopefully, do we all have the change sheet? Should be. Oh, are you going to put it up on the board? Well, or in paper, yeah, that'd be good. I thought I should.
Janine, why don't you go ahead and put it up for everyone in the audience?
I believe you can now see the changes that staff has recently proposed since the version that went out on April 28th. These are essentially cleanup items, and sticking with the method that we've been posting the changes previously, the black is what's been there before, the red was what was proposed in the April 28th version, and this is purple, however it shows up to you, Sacramento Kings color or whatever color you see it as. Those are staff changes on the change sheet, like I said, for clarification purposes. The first one that has...
Now I'm sitting here trying to find which team I want it to be.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, do you realize, I'm sorry, I digress, and I know people are eager to go, but what? Levi Stadium, 85% use of recycled water for toilet flushing. It's all terrific. Go.
We already had red.
49ers, well, wait. They have, their recycled pipe is sort of burgundy because no Ravens or Vikings colors are allowed in the stadium.
I understand completely. We already have red to distinguish from the underline and strikeout in black that Office of Administrative Law will want to see. The first change that staff proposed, obligations of smaller suppliers, and that term's not used in the regulation, smaller suppliers, but we do have the term defined, distributors of public water supply. This change was to make it clear and consistent with the other obligations on urban water suppliers, which is that they're required to reduce their total potable water production, not to take steps to reduce their total potable water production. So when it comes to implementation and enforcement, what we're looking for is not that they have taken steps, but that they have done so. And I think Max adequately covered, and we probably will in response to many other comments, that we're going to be helping them do that. But really what the goal is here, and we wanted to make it abundantly clear and consistent with the other obligations, is that it's the reduction, it's the performance standard that they're required to hit, not take actions to try to get there. The second staff cleanup that we've proposed is similar. Distributor of public water supply, that's what we've been referring to as the smaller suppliers. Previously, there wasn't clearly an exception for when they're operating in a wholesale capacity. And so when we moved the definitions around and based on the changes to this version of the regulation, we thought it was consistent with the intent of the regulation that they have the same language as the urban water suppliers, the over 3,000 connections or 3,000 acre feet supplied do. So that language, except it does not refer to such distributors when they're functioning solely in a wholesale capacity, that exactly mirrors the language that already existed for the urban water suppliers. The third proposed change on the change sheet is to address, it says self-supplied CII users, but really we're talking about commercial, industrial, and institutional users who have multiple sources of supply, some of which are self-supplied, as Board Member Moore was talking about earlier, whether riparian or they have their own well. And the intent, we've been describing it to people, but the language was not clear enough on this point, is that what they are looking to do with that separate source of supply that's not supplied by a supplier is to either in total limit outdoor irrigation of ornamental landscapes to 2 days per week, or reduce the potable water supply that they supply themselves, whether through a riparian or a groundwater source, not through a supplier, by 25%. So any water that a CII user receives from a supplier who has a reduction target under the regulation, whether large or small, they're still going to do for that portion of the water supply what their supplier is asking them to do. For the portion that is not supplied by a supplier, they will also be we will be looking for them to reduce by 25% those self-supplied portions, or in total, reduce their outdoor irrigation to 2 days per week. So they do have those options. But we just wanted to be clear that we're talking about the portion of the supply that they self-supply. And then the final staff change, we had added in, you can see it's in red, so in the last version of the reg, this is new language, that the irrigation of potable water of landscapes outside newly constructed homes and buildings we intend to be deferring or asking people to deal with this in the way that the appropriate entity, the California Building Standards Commission and the Department of Housing and Community Development, create their rules. And so, as was already asked and answered, they are working on that right now, and so we expect those very soon. So we just wanted to be clear that it's not just the California Building Standards Commission, it's both of them that will be working on that. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those, but these were cleanups that we thought either raised by commenters or noted by staff or others were just helpful for clarity and consistency.
Yeah, and for clarity, this is a prohibition actually under Section 864. These are a list of prohibitions. So this is a kind of a fragment sentence that is preceded by the phrase, each of the following actions is prohibited.
Yes, on the last change, we didn't reflect all of the language, but that is the change. You're correct. That is one of the 864, Section 864 end user prohibitions.
Thank you.
The point of it has not changed at all.
Do you want to go through the resolution language? Because that's new for people, some of it, right?
Sure, we can do that quickly.
Things like the work group and stuff you have in there so that we finish what you all are proposing, and then we're going to have a very engaged conversation this afternoon with folks giving us suggestions and us working it through as we usually do. So hopefully somebody will be prepared to play around with things as you take our input. Again, for reminders of folks who don't realize, either on the web or here, the 5 of us only talk together in a duly noticed hearing. And so while some of you may have met with all of us and know what we all think about everything, we do not. So we are very active in conversation at the time. But anything else to flag for folks that they may not have seen before unless they looked at what was posted?
Certainly. I don't know, Janine, can you pull up the resolution? Okay. Well, while she's doing that, I'll just start. There are a number of things I think that are worth flagging in this resolution, and I'll just start with what we're calling upon water suppliers to do. So if we could just go straight to page 4. Number 10. So the language here is calling upon water suppliers to, in implementing this, take a number of things into account and take certain actions. So the first is that they, again, make sure that they have the adequate personnel in place to, and budget in place to take the steps necessary to get to a higher conservation percentage, to move quickly, to really get everything that needs to be in place as fast as possible. And then moving on to page 5.
Oh, wait, but you're encouraging them, but have you mentioned yet the work that you and Mr. Loffer and others are doing to also help on the rate side of things?
Yeah, let me.
Not everything's in the regs. So.
I'll get. Let me. Okay. Yeah, sorry. I'll get there. I think that's further up, but let me go through these first. So again, C is important because we know that C and D together, that just as the water suppliers themselves are facing different conservation standards, based on usage levels, within a water supplier service district, not everyone deserves to be treated equally. Some people have a greater opportunity to conserve, whether they're residents or businesses, than others. So this is just encouragement, again, to focus on the high users within the service district to get the savings, particularly the high outdoor users, and again also to minimize the impacts to low-income customers. E speaks to the small group of suppliers that are already at or below our indoor use standard of 55 gallons per person per day. We're asking them for additional reductions, generally 8%, but we do want to make sure that health and safety is maintained. We don't want to get into a situation where cuts are being asked for that would endanger health and safety. F, we mentioned briefly about maintaining defensible space and conservation together, but again, it's about complying with what's required for defensible space and reducing irrigation as one, and then G, again, keeping the trees alive. So again, these are just actions we're calling on the suppliers to take as they implement this. 11, we mentioned this briefly, is about informing visitors, out-of-state visitors in particular, international visitors, about the drought and what they can do. The 12 through 14.
Sorry, Max, I'm just to keep the conversation. On that point about the tourists' use, I'm empathetic to that. But on the other hand, tourists don't water lawns. It's more of an indoor use management issue. Is it so? In terms of how big of an issue that is, have you a little more detail?
Well, tourism, travel and tourism accounts for a fairly significant share of the state's economy. I think it's somewhere around 10%, and California gets a lot of visitors from other parts of the country and from around the world. So there's an educational purpose here, and then there's also indoor water use still matters, right? Taking a shorter shower matters, and just not being wasteful in general during one's stay. So again, this is just language that we're encouraging the travel and tourism industry to inform and educate, but we're not asking for specific reductions here.
Yeah, and I think, and I just want to acknowledge and focus everyone's attention on this section and also the portions you just went through, because a lot of the fear out there with the average Californian that I'm gathering from all the hundreds of comments I've reviewed is that they're all going to be treated equally. You know, it's just going to be a hatchet job, that the water suppliers are just going to cut me 25% and not recognize what I've already done in my lifestyle changes. So really with this section 10 and then into, you know, these findings in the resolution, we're providing that guidance that, you know, we're dividing this more finely to recognize the spectrum of variability out there in current habits of Californians, and then, you know, and then to really empower the locals to look at issues like the tourism demand in its proper context. You know, that you get the messaging out, but then also, how do you welcome the tourists to California? Do you welcome them with lush, ornamental landscapes that are, you know, a kind of a jarring thing to look at in the context of the golden dry season of California? Or do you welcome them with a California landscape? So there's things to think about. Thanks.
Definitely. So 12 through 14 are really just acknowledging the great work that's already been done at the local and regional level over the course of many years, both on conservation and also on resilience through more resilient supplies that are more drought resistant. And 15 speaks to that as well. 16, this is an issue that I know we'll be hearing a lot about during public comment. We've already received a number of comments on it, and I touched on it during the presentation. This is about if there is a situation where you have a district where the commercial, industrial, institutional, that CII use really is firm, that there's no outdoor use, that the indoor, you know, processed water is as efficient as it gets, and the totality of that use is a very large share of the total use, to the point where the residential sector simply can't make the standard on its own. This would direct us as staff to work on an alternative compliance method. So this is you know, the clear direction to us as staff to make sure that we are allowing for a different path for these types of situations. But again, I want to emphasize that in order to go down this path, we will need to see evidence that commercial and institutional and industrial use really is firm and there's no additional conservation opportunity there. 17 speaks to the work group. A lot of these issues that have been raised that are valid, that are necessary to work through going forward, and we want to engage with all of the really thoughtful comments that were made and all the different stakeholders out there on these issues. So we will be convening a work group or plural work groups, depending, in the weeks ahead, and to try to begin working through this. Chair Marcus, you mentioned the rates issue.
And punt to Mr. Laufer.
I don't see it in the resolution.
We've
not in the
actually got number
resolution, separate
9.
directive.
If we
that was
just
what I wanted to be
scroll
clear.
up to page 4 to number 9, basically just affirms what the executive order directs us to do, which is work with the agencies, work with our sister agencies, and figure out ways that the water suppliers can utilize rates to the best of their ability to get us through this drought and to put us on a long-term path towards conservation, because we know that good conservation-oriented rates are legal. It's a matter of showing your work, and we know that they really do have benefits.
Want to add anything, Mr. Love?
The only thing I would add is that probably later this week, there's been a lot of rush in the run-up to get these regulations out, but later this week, the board will be taking live a website, webpage that just explains a little bit about Directive 8 and the governor's April 1st executive order, which concerns conservation rate structures and other pricing mechanisms. And initially, it will primarily be a toolkit identifying some of the best practices and approaches that have been taken around the state. One thing that is clear, and it's equally clear after the San Juan Capistrano case, is that there is no one-size-fits-all. I mean, that particular decision was limited to the rate structure that had been put in place in San Juan Capistrano and the record that supported or failed to support that particular rate structure in the Court of Appeals decision. So this is on a very different track. As you've heard your staff describe earlier this morning, part of the reason that it has been on a fast track to get these regulations before you is because we're on track for the summer months. Conservation pricing sends both immediate signals in terms of conservation, but also longer term enduring messages to the users. And so we are working closely. 2 weeks ago, it happened to be the same day that the San Juan Capistrano decision came down. We had convened a meeting of a number of attorneys that specialize in Prop 218 from both ACWA, the League of Cities, as well as CSAC, and which is the Association of California Counties. And we have been working with them and will continue to work with them on identifying the best approaches. And the one thing I would just hope resonates with everybody is we recognize there is not a one-size-fits-all, and that is why that particular directive of the executive order reads much differently than the directives that called on the board to adopt conservation regulations immediately and to adopt them as conservation regulations. The price structure discussion will be on a non-regulatory track.
Right, thank you. And then on another separate track, in response to the governor's call, there's also an effort to deal with getting more enforcement tools to local agencies, and that will be legislation that's proposed, or hasn't been proposed yet. So there are other things happening than these regulations to try and assist local agencies to do this work.
That's correct. What the governor has indicated is that part of the May revise, the Department of Finance will be posting up trailer bill language that would provide additional enforcement tools to wholesale and retail water agencies to enforce not only their local conservation regulations, but also the conservation regulations that the State Water Board adopts, with a more robust set of tools that will return any penalty monies that are assessed as a result of those to the local conservation efforts.
The State Water Board and the CPUC. No?
Are you referring to the CPUC regulations? Or
They will be adopting our regulations, and so it will refer to both, because we want to reduce confusion as much as possible.
No, it would not, but that's because our regulations, to the extent that they apply uniformly, first of all, what the governor's proposing would only allow public entities to enforce, and so that takes out the investor-owned utilities. But the public entities would be able to enforce any conservation regulations that the State Water Board has adopted and to the extent that they apply within the boundaries of an investor-owned utility service area. So there would not be an independent mechanism to enforce the CPUC requirements, but that's because in many respects, these will hit sort of the low-hanging fruit on conservation measures.
Thank you. Other questions before we go to comments? All right.
Chair Marcus, if I could
Yes,
briefly
sir.
follow up
Whatever you
one
like.
thing on timing and process that Mr. Laufer touched upon. I just wanted to highlight, and I know that you're aware of this already, but based on the amount of time that everyone has been taking to put this together, and part of this is why this has been rushed and other processes have happened at different times. The government code provides certain rules, as you're familiar with from adopting more than one emergency regulation in the past few months. There are certain timelines that are spelled out for adopting emergency regulations. And to the extent possible, staff have not been driven by those timelines because the governor specifically suspended the Administrative Procedures Act along with California Environmental Quality Act for adoption of emergency regulations. Nonetheless, I do want to highlight that everything that we've done has in fact mirrored those requirements, and we have complied with all of those requirements. And from a timing perspective, that does mean that we should anticipate submitting the emergency regulation, presuming even that it is adopted today by the board. We'll be submitting it to the Office of Administrative Law tomorrow to comply with the 5-day timeline after the formal notice of emergency rulemaking. But nonetheless, even with doing that in this short time frame and with the suspension of the Administrative Procedures Act, we have been able to comply with all of those rules, and I think that we anticipate being able to do all of those things going forward. As Max highlighted, we've even gone above and beyond in as much as we've had time with the economic analysis. As he said, only a fiscal impacts analysis is required for emergency regulation. So we have managed to find the time to do what is required and then some, so that you have all the information to consider.
Thank you. Thanks for adding that as well. Right, let's move into comments. I'm going to limit them to 3 minutes because I'm sure we're going to have questions and discussion. I've got 50 cards, so you don't have to use all 3 minutes of your time. Generally, we found that the key thing is while length can be poetic and interesting and good, if 3 minutes you can focus on what it is we really need to look at. As folks who've watched us know, we keep track, and we'll probably take some breaks along the way, including the lunch break, so we have a chance to digest and synthesize and be able to come back to staff with what we'd like them to do. We don't have a set time to finish. I'll just have to see where we are at a certain time, and if we have to go into tomorrow, we will as well, but I would expect that we'll go fairly late tonight if need be, because we also have another agenda item tomorrow which will take a significant amount of time, but we want to get this as right as we can, and I really appreciate all the work that the team has done to do so much around the clock in as responsive and engaged a way. This really is a community crisis. The community is California. And folks have really risen to the occasion through the time they've given. So I echo Karen's thank you to the team and to those of you out there who have helped us try to struggle with this. But let's do the next round. Our first speaker is Jason Lyles with Senator Mike McGuire's office, followed by Gary Arant from Valley Center.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. I just wanted to concur with you. I think I was getting emails from your staff. It felt like midnight last night, but I think it might have been 9:30, and then again early this morning. So really appreciate all of the hard work. I'm here on behalf of the North Coast and Senator McGuire, who represents the Senate district from the Golden Gate Bridge to the Oregon border. We're in a little bit of different circumstances, as probably everybody here will tell you, but at least we have a good supply of water up in the north. We wanted to congratulate the staff and the board on some very excellent changes to this proposal, and really want to thank you for hearing the different ideas and concepts that we've all been talking about. And I know, Madam Chair, you've talked to the Assembly member about this and the Senator about it in the last couple of weeks. The only thing we would ask is that if it's possible to find a way to amend Section 865C2 that would change the language from a 4-year supply to a 3-year supply. That would be something that would work great for us, or if there's a better solution than just doing that, in order to make sure that Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District can get to that Tier 1 slot. With that, I congratulate you all and really appreciate all the hard work you put into this.
Thank you. We'll put that on the list, but that's a tough call because we don't know when it will end, but a fair suggestion, and we'll come back to it.
Good morning.
Hi there, Mr. Arant, and
Yes.
followed by Brian Cullen from Perkwater.
I'm Gary Arant with Valley Center Water District. I'm also on the board of directors of the San Diego County Water Authority and the Association of California Water Agencies. So water is everything in my daily life. I was struck by the comment, we're hoping for rain and optimism for rain. I'm concerned that hope and optimism is really not a good water plan for the future. I struggle today with what to say because I've said it 3 times in the letters. Probably you've heard many things from many people. So what I will say is that I think we all appreciate the enormity of the problem that you've been handed and your staff has dealt with. I also know that you took with great sincerity all of our comments and input and thoughts that we forwarded to you over this process. And we appreciate the positive changes that you've made so far, and we compliment you on listening and trying to improve the regulations as you move from the framework to the draft to the finals. I can also say that as we move forward into possibly another dry year, please keep an open mind to what you've heard, but also keep in mind, I've heard many times in the webinars and discussions that these are short-term measures to deal with an emergency, but keep in mind that some of these short-term measures could have long-term ramifications. I've also heard some positive things about work groups and course correcting and so forth. So as you move forward, I trust you'll look at some of the really thoughtful, detailed suggestions that have been made by water managers from all over the state of California. And then finally, it was said by Kenneth Starr, who was the former state librarian and noted historian, that without exaggeration, California has literally invented itself through water. In a corollary manner, I think it's safe to say that the very fabric of California will come undone if we don't have an adequate and reliable water supply. Certainly it's not within your power or purview today to correct the fact that our state has essentially ignored its state water system for 4 decades, the length of time I've been in the water business. But tomorrow is a different matter. You will be considering the California Ocean Plan amendments, and your actions could have a very positive effect on the future of California water supply, and that has to do with the future of seawater desalination in our state. So when you consider the Ocean Plan tomorrow, and hopefully you'll come up with a reasoned and balanced action on the amendments, keep in mind that what you do tomorrow could have a very positive effect on the water supply for the future of California. So thank you again, and it looks like we're going to be getting to know each other a lot better.
That's right.
And good luck today.
And thank you for raising that issue so effectively to our attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Cullen, followed by Kimberly Thorner from Olefane Municipal Water District.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Brian Cullen from Perk Water, up from Costa Mesa. We're a water infrastructure company specializing in reuse and water recycling. You might know us from a project we did for the city of Santa Paula a few years back, which was a water recycling facility procured under the Public-Private Partnership Statute of California. And if you haven't been there, an invitation is always open to visit that. But you know, as painful as these emergency conservation regulations may be to many urban water users throughout California, they're gravely needed now as Californians face historical drought conditions not previously recorded. But as we conserve for the immediate future, these emergency regulations highlight the need for an equally urgent policy shift at the local level to embrace stronger commitments to recycling more water so we can reduce our demand on natural resources. While we've seen positive momentum in local water reuse projects, as a state we still have a significant workload ahead of us to reuse as much water as we have available and engage the public about safety of recycled water. What's interesting, we're still seeing out there that there's a perception of the safety, as we all know, on IPR and DPR. So it's a significant challenge, and hopefully the future will see some of those challenges be part of our past. We're also hearing a lot about whether recycled water is a method of conservation given the avoidance of potable water reuse. I've heard that a few times today. But what's interesting is you know, we have 65 wastewater treatment plants up and down the coast and in the Bay Area that are discharging about 1.8 billion gallons each day of effluent into the ocean and saline water bodies, equivalent to about 2 million acre feet per year. Coincidentally, approximately 25% of the urban water potable use. And so it's just interesting to see the impacts that water conservation has as it relates to recycled water. And we're very encouraged to see the positive momentum towards recycled water in this state. And we know that there's a demand, we know that there's It's safe. We know that there's funding available, and this paves the way for substantial progress. I'd like to point out that the point that was made earlier is interesting, was water leaks. One of the projects that we've been involved with, a city in Southern California, replaced a lot of its meters, or planned to replace a lot of its meters, and picked up about 6% of its water loss, unaccounted for water. So that was very encouraging. Not only did they pick up the water, they also picked up the revenue associated with the lost revenue. So so that's really it, and just want to thank the opportunity to present here, and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're placing a high priority, but I think you're right. I mean, in the public mind and the agency mind, there's a moment to be seized. We're going to look back on this year as a critical year for accelerating recycled water acceptance, use, et cetera. We're working very hard on that. Ms. Thorner, after Ms. Thorner, we'll have Jackie Loper from the City of Imperial.
Good afternoon. I think I'm the first speaker that gets to say that. Good afternoon, Chairman Marcus, actually Chairwoman Marcus, members of the board. My name is Kimberly Thorner. I'm the General Manager for Levenheim Municipal Water District. We're located in North San Diego County. For the last almost 19 years, I start my public testimony by saying I'm here on behalf of my 83,000 customers, and I realized as I was preparing my remarks today that never has that population number been more important or more pertinent than it has in the last few weeks. So I have 4 key points that I'd like to make today. First, this is regarding the 20% standard for agricultural water. We feel that this is an arbitrary number, and it will negatively affect generations of true farmers within my service area. We serve about 5% water, and I'm here to say a farmer, a true farmer that meets your definition of commercial ag, is a farmer no matter where they're located. I understand that the San Diego Farm Bureau introduced a proposal late last week whereby agencies who have less than 20% of agricultural water sales could collectively prepare an ag water management plan and apply a 15% standard. We believe this is both fair and equitable, and we would wholeheartedly support this proposal, and my agency would be a champion for its implementation in our region if your regulations were to include it. Second, regional formation. You flirted with that and then it disappeared off the radar. I do urge you to take a look at our comment letter yesterday. We included a copy of an agreement from 2011 where 4 agencies in North San Diego County came together and formed a region for compliance under SBX 7. And I want to point out that we both report regionally and individually, so you do have the task of both region and individual reporting. This has worked very well amongst our reporting agencies. We're already well on our way. Some of us have already achieved our 20% by 2020 target. I want you to consider this proposal. Third, our wholesaler, the County Water Authority, turned in a proposal whereby any drought-proof local water supply since 2013 could be applied towards processed water consumption for commercial and industrial customers. Processed water consumption is not outdoor ornamental landscaping, which I believe is the key for I heard today, that's the key for your target for conservation. Processed water consumption is targeted and it is linked to the businesses and the economy in our region. We develop these local drought-proof supplies. We're paying more for these drought-proof supplies, and we want our economy to thrive. I'm in a unique situation. Because of these local supplies, my agency will not be in a supply deficit situation for the next 270 days. I'm at a loss. How do I tell my businesses that have paid for this higher cost, drought-proof local supply, I have the water, but they can't use it? Last but not least, I know I'm at my time, I want to echo Gary Arant's comment about keeping us engaged through the process. Everybody here is on the front line. We live and breathe water every day. At the end of the day, I know you guys don't want to be finding us. You want us to achieve the target for conservation. What you adopt today might not be ultimately the best plan a couple months from now. Keep us engaged in the process, and hopefully it's just 270 long days. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What percentage is processed water?
I'll have the water authority offer that because it's their proposal. Well, they know the numbers for the county, but the proposal is statewide. If anybody has developed these drought-proof local supplies.
Do you know what the percentage is for your
Your
community?
district, right.
I think that's what she was asking.
Yeah, we're not as high. We're probably about 7%. We're about 5% ag.
My question was on processed water, not ag water.
No, so the processed water is relative to commercial and industrial.
Right.
Basically, we're saying we agree outdoor watering for commercial agencies 2 days a week, 25% reduction, whatever the target is, but having an exemption for that processed water that are the fundamental basis of the businesses. And I know the Water Authority is going to be speaking later, and they can probably address more.
Followed by Matt Peterson from the City of LA. Introduce yourself.
My name is Jackie Loper. I'm with the City of Imperial. I'm in a small city, a city of 17,000 people in the Imperial Valley that has less than probably 170,000 people. One of the things that I didn't hear here, and I would like to start with a small disclosure. I come in here thinking this was not exactly right and fair to all, and I see great strides by your staff and by your board. And I guess the one thing that I would encourage is the ability for these boards and your employees of this board and those that represent it to work with the smaller communities. It's very hard for us to come up here. It's very hard for us to get out into the field and do. We're very limited in supplies and very limited in personnel. It's not that we don't want to comply, and it's not that we're not willing to help and do, but it's very hard when you're in a small area with small resources to perform and produce and travel the great distances. So I'd just like to say I kind of had a change of opinion after being here for a little bit of time. Don't think that anyone is against saving water. Don't perceive that. But I think the resources in the small communities is something that they're really looking for, and the guidance and help. Thank you.
Happy to. There's a limit to what they've done superhuman work in the short period of time, but I assure you they will be around. Thank you. Appreciate your invitation as well. Matt Peterson from the City of LA, followed by Marlene Best, also from the City of Imperial.
Thank you, Chairwoman. It's a pleasure and honor to be with you here today. On behalf of Mayor Garcetti, the City of LA wants to thank the State Water Control Board for your leadership in helping the state address this extreme drought and help us work through it. And we also appreciate the responsiveness of the board to our utilities recommendations on how to improve your program that you're considering here today. Mayor Garcetti, when he released his executive directive last October, asked the residents of Los Angeles to conserve water by 20%. And we're seeing incredible responsiveness to that call to action. We've also mandated that all of our departments reduce their water use by 20% as well. And we've increased our turf rebate from $3 a square foot to $3.75. So we certainly feel that we'll be able to hit these numbers. The mayor's 20% target over the next 2 years will actually reduce our overall total consumption to a total GPCT of about 104 gallons per capita per day. We started with our baseline at 130 gallons per capita per day. And we hope that we also ask that consideration for other water agencies to report their total GPCT as well as our GBCD, so we begin to think about other uncaptured water sources, leakage, loss, commercial, industrial. We've seen incredible responsiveness from our commercial industrial sector in LA since we released that target. So mostly want to thank you, appreciate your continued leadership, and on behalf of Mayor Garcetti, appreciate your efforts to help all of California work through this drought.
Thank you very much. Isn't it the directive is 20% off your 2014 numbers, not
correct,
and which is more aggressive than the target you would receive here because your
correct
residential gallons per capita is lower than your.
We will get below what your order would require us to do by 2017.
Probably this year, I would think.
Well, if we keep seeing the progress that we're seeing, and there's a few factors that it depends on, of course. We're increasing our recycled water supply that we're using for beneficial use and moving towards IDPR, and of course making other investments, some amount of gray water, but mostly it's going to come from conservation and turf replacement and commercial industrial leadership as well.
Great.
Thank you,
Thank
Chairwoman.
you very much.
Thank you very much.
Max, didn't we talk about having a reporting of GPCD too, not just RGBCD? Because then we're using RGCBD for targeting because it's apples to apples rather than apples to oranges or apples to camels. Someone said it's not, it's actually fruit to fruit to me the other day. Whatever you call it, the RGPCD gives us apples, a fruit to fruit comparison, whatever you want to call it, but the GPCD also tells you a bit about what the total reduction is. Did we decide to report that or not?
So we didn't decide to ask for the suppliers to calculate it, but the information, the data we get every month allows
Being
for
calculated off it.
Right. So we can put, we put out a
that's right.
spreadsheet every month, and we can put a column in there.
Oh, so we can just do it on the Excel spreadsheet without asking them to do something extra. Thank you. That's great. Just another data point. Okay, Marlene Best, sorry, followed by Eric Larson from the San Diego County Farm Bureau.
Madam Chair, members of the board, staff, and members in the audience, thank you very much for having this hearing today and for the opportunity to provide comment to you. The City of Imperial, as Mr. Loper previously referenced, is a very small community in southeastern California. We're representative of some of those smaller water suppliers who don't have the ability to go to the regular meetings, to watch everything online. We have a limited amount of personnel and a limited amount of resources. So we have learned a great deal just in attending today's meeting. The city has in the past been a leader in water conservation issues in Imperial County. Based upon what we felt was the right thing to do, the City Council adopted tiered water rates in 2009. They actually went into effect in February 2010. Since that point in time, we've seen a 37% reduction in our usage of water. The city also has a number of residents who are looking at trying to find ways to replace the turf in their front yards. We have people who are moving forward with looking at other water conservation avenues in their households. The city also has moved forward with the latest housing subdivision that is using SWRCB in their front yard landscaping. So we're moving forward in those manners. We have also been implementing new regional strategies for a regional wastewater reclamation facility so that we can pursue on a regional level rather than small pocketed plants, which is very common in rural California, put it together in a regional effort and try to reuse and recycle those supplies. In that effort, we thought we were doing pretty good. Unfortunately, we came out in tier number 8. So we're trying to work with your staff to see how we can better our efforts, even though we feel that we've made some very great accomplishments. The City Council is very supportive of water conservation. We know that it's a big issue. After all, we do live in a desert. So living in a desert, water is life, and it's very, very critical for our residents. Moving forward from that point of view, we really do want to work with the board. We want to be a good champion, continue to be that for water conservation efforts in Imperial County. It is a major, major issue for us with the quantification settlement agreements and whatnot that are moving forward with the Imperial Irrigation District and other regions. So we would like to be your advocate. Having heard a lot of sports analogies here this morning with the colors and whatnot, I would encourage you, in the words of Jerry Maguire, help me help you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that offer. We'll take you up on it. Mr. Larson, followed by Mark Weston from the San Diego County Water Authority.
Thank you, Chair Marcus and members of the board. I'm Eric Larson, Executive Director of the San Diego County Farm Bureau. I'd like to start by pointing out that San Diego County has a very rich agricultural heritage. We're the 19th largest farm economy in the United States among all counties, and that's a combination of urban and rural agriculture. A number of our farms find themselves embedded in urban districts that don't meet the 20% standard, and that's largely due to the fact that one time they were agricultural communities, and then they became urbanized around those farms, and those farms have persevered and stayed there. In most of those cases, they want to continue to farm, and we hope that you will agree with that. Staff reported earlier today that the 20% standard was created as a fairness doctrine for those folks who were urban users in those larger ag communities. But the unintended consequence then, the unfairness now has landed on those farms in the smaller districts that serve below 20%. So I would urge you not to create two classes of farmers, those who by good fortune are in a 20% serving district and those who by no action of their own find themselves below the arbitrary threshold that treats them as a secondary class of farmer. Also, conversation today about the definition of farmers. We would suggest that you select a very high threshold for people to prove that they are a commercial farmer, even if that's done under the, some kind of a declaration under the penalty of perjury. So please drop the arbitrary 20% standard and adopt a rule that treats all farmers as equals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You have a question? That's definitely one of the issues I'm going to want to come back to later with Steph.
And are you still standing by your offer to develop an urban drought plan for a collective group?
Absolutely. For some of those smaller farms, to save the burden for those districts and to save the burden for state board staff, we suggest that they be allowed to come together as a group, those smaller districts, and create their agricultural water management plans.
And the group and the farms in that group would meet the definition that you're suggesting.
We think the definition of commercial farm should be an extremely high standard, that they are in fact enrolled in an irrigated lands group, file their income taxes as a farmer, meet whatever standards you think needs to be met to prove that they are commercial farmers and no one is gaming the system.
Okay, thank you.
And as part of your proposal, tell me a little bit more about the 15% target that you're hoping to accomplish.
Well, we
that would be a 15% reduction in...
Right. Agriculture in San Diego County, just so you know, we've reduced water usage by over 50%, about 60% in one decade. This was not a benevolent gesture on our part. A lot of it was driven by the clean water rules, and the farmers could no longer have any irrigation runoff, but mostly driven by the price of water, and the farmers invested very, very heavily in water technology, drip irrigation, those things that you're now placing on the urban users, we've been doing for a number of years just as a matter of survival. The 15% is a standard. The San Diego County Water Authority is on the brink of establishing a 15% reduction to the farmers in their region. That's where the 15% number comes from. We want to point that out. We fully expect the San Diego County Water Authority to take that action based on the supplies and the limitations they're going to be receiving from the Metropolitan Water District. Thank you.
Thank you very much.